All right, this is the Reading Room. I'm Jeff Cook. Happy Saturday morning. For those of you who are listening this weekend, happy weekend. You'll hear it in my voice that I just woke up. One of my favorite jokes is from a guy. What did he say? He's like, when you wake up in the morning, somebody calls you, and you try and pretend like it's not an intrusion. He says, "You sound like Elmer Fudd." He said, "Oh, hello. No, I've been up for hours and hours." That's a dumb joke as I'm saying it, but that's where I'm at right now. Kind of slap happy, early morning, got my coffee. We're in chapter 4 of Personality and Wholeness in Therapy. Man, here's the thing. I'm going to start this sucker off different. One, I'm only going to cover the first third of this chapter. If you've read this chapter, you know that this is a thick chapter. And a lot of what is going on in this book is in this first third of this chapter. So may need to spend some time. He's summarizing quite a bit. So it's like just the Cliff Notes. If you want the Cliff Notes, here it is. So actually, if you have a friend who's jumping into this, send them this podcast. This will be a great place to jump in, and they can say, "I'm not interested in that," or they can say, "No, this is for me," because I'm gonna talk through the entirety of the idea that he's trying to present in this book. Second, and this is kind of a side note, but I obviously canceled class last week because I had a great weekend with the folks who are creating Around the Circle, with Kristen, with Jackie, with Katie, with TJ. Got a chance to hang with Heidi, the therapist, Amy from Loveland, with lots of folks who love Enneagram. We were at a Stabile event, and events are always fantastic for my heart, not because I almost never get anything out of the actual content for the most part. I take copious notes, but events for me is just like getting in the presence of other people who care about the thing that you care about. And that's like just what my heart needs, what my soul needs. And and I'm like, I don't even know it till I'm there. And so it's not only a shout out to those folks, but one of the things that we're trying to create online, because it's so difficult to create those kinds of spaces in the Enneagram world, just because, Enneagram can be kind of a niche community for those who really get into it. So, but for those of us who do really get into it, it's worth finding others. And one of our big tasks, Katie and I's big tasks, is creating spaces at aroundthecircle.org where we can connect. Now we're doing that weekly with this book study. So jump in, grab a membership, come talk about the book. This is not just a place to talk about Enneagram and yourself. It's a place to connect with others who really get into this material and just feel what it feels like to talk about it at a high level. And then also we have our second Saturdays. And those have been going great. You can hear the recordings of those, obviously, on our feed or at aroundthecircle.org. But joining up with us for second Saturdays, we're going to pivot to some new topics coming up. But we would love to have you. A third place, and this is something that we are fashioning and really are just looking for folks to sign up, connect with us. You just need to reach out and connect with us, and then we will find ways to get you talking with others. But we are doing more panels. You may have heard the recent 5 panel that we had. That may be the best episode, in my view, of the year, the 5 panel that we did. But we're doing more of those, and they're not just going to focus on stress and security moving forward. We're hoping to have these be a little bit more regular. And it might be the case that it's not even for consumption, like other people hearing about your type. It might just be for us, like let's just get all the 4s together and talk. Let's get all the 9s together and talk. And just talk through some of the ways that we come to the world, because that can just be so valuable for many of our hearts. So aroundthecircle.org is where we're doing just so much stuff, and it will continue to expand. It'll continue to grow, partially because we have 100 people who are paying to be members there, and that's a huge deal to us. Like, that allows us, like, just a little bit of money that we get, a little relative, but the money that we get there allows us to build some stuff. And if we were to double or triple that, like, it would actually make a significant difference in terms of us being able to really make some things that can't be created. So, so if you believe in the stuff that we're doing, if you want to connect with us, do more work with me, do more work with Katie and the other folks who we work with, just love for you to jump in. Just be one of those introductory people that's like, I believe in this, and I know that you guys are gonna bust it here in the next year or two and make something amazing. We would love to have you. So, and actually, if you do jump in, you'll probably help fashion what we're creating in the first place. So, this chapter has another sticky title: A Developmental Perspective, Vectors, a Tendency, and Emotion Regulation Modes. Just, I mean, that's Shakespeare right there. It's just what I'm saying. Academics, man. I don't, just because I live around academics, just spend 2 seconds. Just put it into the chat. Give me something poetic and the rest. Like, I'm going to know what this is in the rest of the chapter. I'm already yawning. So, and here's the point. This is a really great chapter. So, anyway, Dr. Daniel Siegel, if you're listening, your book's amazing. I realize that scientists need to sound like scientists so that other scientists think that their science is science-y. But I think you should stretch your wings, make it sticky. All right, so it starts out. He's going to talk about the PDP. That's the Enneagram. His pathways of developmental. What are they? They're patterns of developmental pathways. See, it's not sticky. This actually, all right. Let me say something up front. This is going to be really important to this entire chapter. We are getting into neuroscience, brain chemistry. Here's what your nervous system looks like. This is how it was fashioned at early ages. He's going into some very important observations about human development and how it affects our motive and how we are in the world and why it's the case that we are the way that we are. Lots of theory. All of this is glorious. It's really thick. Like, I'm a trained academic, been in the university 15 years. This is hard for me. My best play is kind of dumbing it down at one level, but it may feel like Enneagram sometimes, like it pushes into stereotypes. It can come across a little too simplistic at times, right? You watch some of these some videos by people that we love who are creating out there, just trying to caricature some of the types. To be honest, that can be incredibly helpful. Of course, it's simplistic. Of course, it's putting people in a box. But at one level, it's creating language. It's creating language that you can actually use to discuss these ideas up front. Because you'll hear it when I start reading some of this material. You're just like, what the hell is going on with these symbols that you're using? And it's a little bit easier, I suppose, if you're actually reading the book. But you're a type 3, you're a type 7, you're a type 9. That has a huge virtue. Simplicity on these fronts is a huge virtue. So, if there was one thing I would have done differently in this book, aside from make the title sticky and change the title of the book itself, it would have been just use the Enneagram numbers, man. Like, it's there. It's like, it is already a shared language. Tweak it if you need to, but he doesn't. He wants to create some new stuff, or the team wants to create some new stuff. So that's my only criticism. Dr. Siegel, I'm really appreciative of your book. First sentence: how do we come to have an identity shaped by automatic processes happening beneath awareness? Just going to stop there. How do we come to an identity shaped by automatic processes happening beneath awareness? Big idea is you got channels in your brain, you got pathways in your brain. Some of them open up significantly in the earliest stages of your life, likely before you're born. And these are designed to keep you alive. And they focus on the things that he's going to focus on agency, bonding, and certainty, and how you get those things. If you have agency, you'll stay alive. If you're able to bond with others, you'll stay alive. If you can forecast what's ahead with some degree of certainty, it's going to help you stay alive. Most human beings, I'm sure, like 20, 30,000 years ago, the child mortality rate is very, very high compared to today. And like having these survival skills early on, I assume is going to be central to you getting just big enough to where you can actually live. Human beings, for those of us who have had kids, like a human being comes out and it's not like a deer. A deer comes out of the womb and that sucker can run. Like, there's a cow, it's standing on its legs, it's a little herky jerky, of course, maybe falls over a couple times. That's not how a baby comes out. Like a human baby comes out, it's just a blob of, what is it? It doesn't even have a personality. Sucker can't even smile yet, let alone run. But our personality is formed, in his view, to keep us alive. And that personality identity, it is shaped by automatic processes happening beneath awareness. Automatic processes is such a great term. Okay, so for all my ranting about language, thinking about your Enneagram type as an automatic process can be really helpful, because what it says is you have something subconscious that's actually controlling you, and you have to name that. You have something that's controlling you in your brain. There's a picture. I need to find it. It's of just the nervous system, the human nervous system. So it's like a brain and eyeballs and like all the nerve endings going into the arms and legs. And underneath it says, this creature lives inside of you and controls everything you do. And it's like the creepiest thing. I'm trying not to cuss today. But it just makes me laugh. His theory, and this is just like cross your fingers hope, is that you can develop those other pathways. So you may be an 891 and you primarily focus on agency, and that's the central thing for you, right? That's your primary motive. But he thinks that you can open up those channels in your brain for bonding, open up those channels in your brain for a desire for certainty. And when you do, what ends up happening is you can begin to pivot. And this is where volition, agency, it's you can control your life. When you don't live in the excess of your number and your survival strategies, those automatic processes. Notice how like controlling that sounds. Those automatic processes are thinned in their power, and you get to choose who you're going to be. I think that's his big target. That's what wholeness looks like. You become a holistic human being. He has 2 quotes up front, and we spent a lot of time on the metaphysics of what he wants to say about choice and what's happening. I'm hesitant to quote these because I'm going to go off for a while, because he's got all sorts of stuff happening in the brain, and he keeps like referring to a chooser, but he can't necessarily put his thumb on where the chooser might reside, as it were. So you can go back and listen to some of the discussions that we had. These are all at aroundthecircle.org. Just go to categories, look for a reading room. He wants to dip his toe into the metaphysics of personal identity and kind of say, this is what I think's taking place. Like he wants to talk about a conductor or one who chooses. This is my wheelhouse. I keep saying this, but like, this is not sufficient work for, like, he is not establishing what's going on in terms of what it means to be you. And as another third critique of the book, I think he thinks he is, and he's not. So need to call the philosophers in to help you with your metaphysics is what I say. Anyway, but we've covered that. Page 69 at the bottom. Under various developmental circumstances, the constructed adaptive strategies, what we talked about, these constructive adaptive strategies can become personality patterns to greater or lesser degrees of intensity. Big claim there. It's not just that you're a 1. It's that you have those adaptive personality patterns of a 1 to greater or lesser degrees. Big idea there for him. With more or less deeply carved PDP grooves, the reason being your excess or lack of excess is based, in his view, on how much your brain has channeled that energy. So, like, I have a buddy who says he's a 7 with a 7 wing. That would be the point. Like, you have really carved out that groove, haven't you? Actually, this dude is a very healthy human being and is overstating it, but quite adventurous. Lower states of function. He says this: lower states of functioning within a given PDP would result from a deep, narrow groove. Higher states of functioning within a PDP would be a wider groove. Okay. Deeper groove means you're in excess. Wider groove means you have a little bit more control, volition, holistic way of being in the world. You'll notice the value judgments. Again, I'm going to come in as a philosopher every single time. Lower, higher, these are value sensitive terms. These are not scientific terms. And I just want to pound the table on some of this front. Like, you are stepping into value judgments here but it would be with the presupposition, I suppose, that wholeness is the target. So I should be fair. If we allow that, if we say, look, what it means to be a good person, a healthy person, what you're aiming at in therapy is wholeness, is this, integrated, we talked about last time, an integrated self. That is, you've opened up all these channels. If that's the case, then quote unquote, higher states make sense. Lower states make sense. That's what he's saying. All right. 5th quote for me. This is still at the bottom of 69. Let's continue to build our understanding of the 3 systems of mind, our 3 vectors that serve the 3 primal needs for agency, bonding, and certainty. Vector is his word for the centers, for the most part. And the centers have a primal need for agency, bonding, certainty. By the way, I don't hear that quite enough in Enneagram world. This always struck me as just, this is the thing. Enneagram is about motive. What do you want? You want agency. You want control. You want that autonomous way of being in the world. You want bonding. You want to connect with other human beings. You're a heart type. You want to have those relational connections, and that's first. That's primary. 2s, 3s, 4s. You want certainty. You have a future focus that's aware of what's to come. You want to have some degree of mental assurance of your resources and how you're going to adjust, adapt, and meet any future confrontations. It's 5, 6s, and 7s. That agency, bonding, and certainty, it just seems core to me, and that's well said. Each of these 3 vectors, the centers, each of these 3 centers sets a directionality in the assignment of meaning. That's a big claim. Or salience that then shapes the flow of attention and energy into feelings, thought, and action on behalf of achieving agency, connection, and safety. Your center is interpreting the world and it's creating meaning. That again is a huge philosophical claim. Whereas meaning created, that's his view. So, when you get into existential questions and what is the origin of meaning? How do you come to questions of meaning? Scientifically, I don't know how you escape this idea, by the way. Like that we are. So Jean-Paul Sartre wants to say that we are meaning creating creatures. And that would be, in essence, what he's saying. Aristotle wants to go a different route. He wants to say that we are born with a proper function. So all in being a human being, you already have meaning written into who you are. And a lot of the theological traditions go down that road of God has made you for a purpose or something. Lots to say there. But he jumping in. He again jumping into deep waters. And here's some breadcrumbs. I suppose talk amongst yourselves. Top of 70. When under a threat, activation of each of the centers, each of the vectors, is filled with the centrality of the reactive core protective emotions of anger, sadness, and separation, distress, or fear. Exactly right. Most of our book, Around the Circle of the Book, which you should pick up if you haven't yet, is going to focus on exactly what he's saying right here. You're taking the world in through your center, through your vector, and it's producing an underlying emotion. That underlying emotion is a core protective emotion. That's why you feel shame. That's why you feel fear. That's why you feel anger. The underlying feeling of your type is wired to your primary motive. And he wants to, again, say those primary motives are established by the channels in your brain that erupted early on and are causing you to want what you want, and even creating meaning out of that. Then within each vector, a trio of pathways and the adaptive strategies they instantiate emerge in the course of development, shaped by whether a tendency is mainly inward, outward, or didactic, as it wavers between inward and outward, yielding a trio for each of the three vectors, resulting in 9 pathways. I do that whole sentence. You can rewind if you need to. I do that whole sentence because this is how you get the 9 types. He wants to say there's 3 centers. He calls them vectors. Those centers respond to the underlying feeling of anger, fear, and what he calls sadness and separation distress. That's his word for shame, or his phrase for shame. And there's a little bit more specificity there, which I grant, because again, his thing for the heart triad, 2, 3s, and 4s, he wants to say that bonding is primary. So if bonding doesn't take place, what is the emotion, the underlying feeling that you're feeling? Sadness and separation distress is what he thinks is the best name for that feeling. I continue to like shame for a lot of reasons, mostly because of the past orientation that shame elevates. But these 3, yielding a trio of pathways. There's 3 ways to meet your anger. That anger can go inward, it can go outward, or it can go kind of in both directions, which he calls didactic. This is super important. And again, this comes out of the Berkeley School. This comes out of the work of Dr. David Daniels, and it can be attached to object relation theory and attachment theory. So these Stanford psychologists, Berkeley psychologists, and the rest, they are engaged. They really got into that material. Those sorts of theories about human development, what it looks like to bond with your parents early on. And that's where attachment theory comes out. Now, what's interesting is coming out of attachment theory is this directionality of your energy. Does it go inward, outward, or in both directions didactically? And so when you combined the 3 centers, you want agency, bonding, certainty. In our view, it's that's heart, mind, and body. And you're meeting your underlying feeling. You're meeting it out there, you're meeting it within, or you're trying to meet it like in both directions. Now he's going to build on this in the next page. This is where I've set all this up because this next idea is going to be crucial to kind of unpack and get our heads around. Page 71. The ways this emotional energy is handled fall into one of 3 tendencies: to experience and express, which he calls EE, contain and channel, which he calls CC, or reframe and redirect, which he calls RR. Again, the alliterations. my fourth critique of the book. Love me some alliterations. No, I don't. I hate alliterations. But mnemonically, it might work in terms of like, here's something sticky. But again, man, there's already language here. You just grab the language. Experience and express. aside from the critique. Let's talk about those who experience and express. This is going to be 2s, 5s, and 8s. What the idea here is that 2s, 5s, and 8s want to upregulate their emotion, anger, shame, and fear. We'll unpack why and how that works, but his image of experience and express, and that each of these ways of dealing with your underlying feeling are what he calls that it's in service of adaptation to that core emotional state. We'll unpack this here in a second. And by the way, I'm going to go through the 9 types and his unpacking of the 9 types. And that's what I'm going to do in this episode. And I'm only going to cover 5 pages. That's probably what I think. This is going to take a lot of time, actually. But the second is CC, contain and channel. This is 1s, 4s, and 7s are going to contain and channel the energy. This is really interesting. I've never heard that kind of language, and it buzzes for me at some level. That 1s take in their anger, contain and channel it. 4s take in their shame, contain and channel it. 7s take in their fear, contain, channel it. And he's going to unpack what that looks like. It gets very Enneagram heavy in these descriptions, and it feels like some of the people who know Enneagram are going to be tweaking what can be said here, given their history with these types. So you'll hear that quite a bit, which is fun. But last is reframe and redirect. This is also a great description of 3s, 6s, and 9s. The 3 reframes the shame and then redirects the energy. The 9 reframes the anger and redirects the energy. The 6 reframes the anxiety, shifts, and redirects. I think that's helpful. So I need to think a little bit more on 6s there, but that certainly pings for me for 3s and 9s. So this next section, again, just between page 71 and 75, he's just going to talk through those 3 types. I'm going to read down the descriptions of the types, and I'm just going to comment. So we're going to go around the circle with his material, and that's going to be our episode. So, by the way, I'm going to do something in this episode. I'm going to go ahead and release the entire episode on our podcast feed, so you don't have to bounce to aroundthecircle.org. But I would strongly suggest that you go there to hear some of the rest of these deep dives. Again, this is going to be kind of an introduction to what we're doing in this study. A lot of what he's said so far in this book is just in these first few pages that I just covered. But this is, now we're talking Enneagram. The beginning had a lot of non-Enneagram, or it's setting the stage for Enneagram and the theory he wants to pitch. But now we're talking Enneagram. All right, so he's going to jump into the 9 descriptions. Part of this is that these are adaptive strategies. So really important, actually, I should mention this, is we have one of these adaptive strategies that we really grab hold of. That's our Enneagram type. But he thinks all 9 are available to us at some level. That may be true, that may be false. But notice it is worth saying that there's only 2 elements of your brain, he thinks, at play here. It's whether or not you're gonna push towards agency, bonding, or certainty on one front, and on another front is your energy going inward, outward, or in both directions. So wholeness is going to be in that space. So how you adapt to the world around you may be colored in terms of these ways of being in the world. But when I read this, all I see is Enneagram type, and that's kind of how I'm going to treat it for now. He starts with what would traditionally be the 1s. Channel this way of being in the world, this adaptive strategy, channels, tempers, disciplines, motivational energy in ways that are more socially acceptable or likely to be more effective. In the AI, that is the agency inward pathway, when your attention is going inward, that pathway that you've created, attention and energy are inward centered and around learned internalized templates of standards of right versus wrong, good versus bad, useful versus ineffective, and rules of social engagement. let me pause there. This is where it feels like somebody else is coming in and saying, this is how this manifests, this type manifests in the world. That anger inward produces behavior that commonly looks like this. Because this feels like Enneagram language to me. It may be right, may be wrong. Let's see, one that I am. That's how I interpret his discussion of right and wrong, isn't it? But he elevates some of that and says this is how this overlaps with agency inward. He continues, here expressions of seeking like motivational energies and anger are downgraded, tempered, or contained and channeled accordingly, because that will be most effective or adaptive. I find this intriguing. I do know what it's like. So one that I'm going to just talk about myself for 2 seconds, but I do know what it's like to downregulate anger. I also know what it's like to upregulate my anger without discretion. So that may be balance at some level. It may be the case that given his framework, I'm employing 8 tools because I'm upregulating my anger at some places. It's also the case that he calls this the CC group, the 147s. So we contain and then channel. Now that makes a lot more sense than the language that I see here. Downregulation feels strange to me. But if you were to say, no, what's taking place is the world's coming into you, you are seeking agency, you're seeking then to take your anger, contain it, and move it. You are containing and channeling. That makes sense to me because that showcases what the behavior is actually doing. Like one's in seeking to improve themselves, improve the world, the manifestations of behavior that come out of the anger that we experience towards ourselves. That's what it looks like. It's like, okay, how are you going to wrestle with this, with your need for agency that produces anger? How are you going to deal with that energy? It's, again, science. Energy can't be created or destroyed. So you have the world coming into you. It's interpreted. That energy's in you. What are you going to do with it? All that is a lot of language I use all the time, and it may be very one-ish way to come to the world. So second paragraph picks up the 8s, who allow agency vector motivations to blossom into fully embodied expressions. In the AO, in the agency outward pathway, when that's his shorthand for the 8 is AOPDP. In the AOPDP, the 8s, the attention and energy are outward centered toward objects of need, desire, or threat. Seeking like emotional motivations and anger are allowed to flow relatively unconstrained outward. Relatively unconstrained is a great phrase for 8s. They allow their anger to flow relatively unconstrained outward into embodied expressions in a generally upregulated, self-assertive, powerful kind of energetic stance and go for what I need or want. Protect me and mine or make it happen behavior. Again, so much Enneagram like wisdom and insight coming into this description, it seems to me. Anger is experienced and expressed. Said simply, sometimes in life it is most adaptive to be big or to be powerful and to be assertive. This is the upregulation of the EE, the experience and express mode. Okay, so you're experiencing your anger, 8s, and then expressing it, and that's how you get what you want in the world. That's how the anger is utilized. Again, it's just energy. It's energy being, you take in the world, interpret the world. That is energy inside of you, and you need to behave. And that's like, if you don't behave, if you don't have a motivation, if you don't have a type, we're going to talk about this on the morning show, actually, here in 2 weeks. If you don't behave like you're a vegetable, you're in a vegetative state, like getting rid of your type makes you less human in my view. Like you have to do something with the energy coming into you. You cannot just be a rock. We'll talk about 9s here in a second, but how you react to, respond to, engage the world with what is being poured into you really matters. So with the 8s here, allowing their anger to flow relatively unconstrained outward into embodied expressions. That is the way, and I think he says it well, that is the way that they're seeking to survive. Sometimes, said simply, sometimes in life it is most adaptive. That's a big evolutionary term. It is most adaptive to be big, powerful, or assertive. Helps you survive. Helps you get where you need to be. And this is a way of engaging that anger there. I'll be real curious if he thinks, like, for example, when sixes are really angry, outwardly angry, if he thinks that they're shifting into this gear or if it's something else. That will be a question for later. I have a lot of thoughts on this, by the way, and stress and security moves. This opened up some stuff for me on stress and security moves. I'm probably, just to tease it, I'm probably going to just talk about that next time. Set this in framework and then say, notice how this works when it comes to stress and security, because it's brilliant. Like it really works. Once you stumble across, like, you had the theory of arrows creating this satanic symbol that is on the cover of all the Enneagram books. But then the science says, no, that's actually how things go. Just like, oh yeah, win. I'm glad I embraced the triangle having sex with a pentagram symbol that we employ everywhere. I know I've said that joke before, but it still makes me laugh. Okay, so 9s, let motivational energy dissipate. This way of being in the world that lets motivational energy dissipate and attention be redirected as when continued pursuits would be useful or fruitless. Something more compelling has come along, or the need has passed. In the 9 type, in the AD PDP, the agency didactically directed, in the AD PDP, attention and energy are both inward and outward centered around conflicting information from inward and outward sources. 9's trying to control everything within. 9's trying to control everything without. He continues, e.g., I need that, but that is unattainable. Or I want this, but you want that. Attention and energy flow are shifted as they are reframed and redirected into a reconciling or accommodating stance. That sounds familiar. And behavior that will attempt to shift the state of mind to an unconflicted, calm, and peaceful motivational state. Again, it's the case. I feel like he rightly is bringing in things that have been studied extensively in terms of Enneagram into the model that he's presenting. So for those whose energy is going both ways, what does that look like? Here's a short description of commonly how 9s deal with their anger. Said simply, sometimes it's most adaptive to let things be. Yet while this may be an immediate reaction, especially to a rising tension or conflict, the shifting away from a state of anger may yield a numbing and underlying agitation when the motivation for agency toward empowerment remains unfulfilled and the individual becomes invisible in the face of compromise and mediation. This is the shifting of the RR, reframe, and redirect mode. All that, again, just sounds like real, just what we would commonly talk about when thinking about the anger of 9s, the behavior of 9s given their anger, how that all plays out. Big language here for me is that the shifting away from a state of anger, that is what reframing and redirecting looks like. The shift matters. The shift is caused by the anger itself. Katie Whitlock and I are going through processing center presently and thinking about what's going on with 3s, 6s, and 9s in particular when they are trying to get their motive fulfilled. This language is spot on these fronts. Reframe, redirect. You are like taking in the world through your primary center. This is how processing center would work. I'll speak for Joey Shui here, but it's her theory. It seems to me like you're pivoting off of your center, going somewhere else. So for the 9 here, they're taking in the world through their body center. The anger emerges. What do you do with the anger? You reframe and redirect. That looks like doing business with your anger, not in your body, but doing it in your head. So the reframing takes place cognitively. The reframing and redirecting takes place in a space that's not your body, because you couldn't stay there at some level. Like it's pivoting into using, in my view, different tools. Or I suppose in Siegel's language, it's using different pathways maybe. The shift, by the way, notice this. The shift from 9 space to 6 space into the head space, it's not a shift of how the energy is going, the didactic energy. 6s also have their energy going outward and inward. So that's not shifted. So that pathway is open. The only thing the 9 is shifting is how they're addressing their anger, and they're doing it cognitively with, I assume, a mind towards certainty and what that kind of produces. Pushing into certainty. That is what that is. You push into certainty when you're doing the work in that space. And in Katie and I's view, you're doing the work there, and then you're returning home to try and meet your motive. That works for me. Next section is on the bonding vector, the heart centers. You can read through this. It's heart strategies, the adaptive strategies characterized by 2s, 3s, and 4s. Starting with 4s, starts this pathway: allow your needs for others' attention and care to blossom into fully embodied expression. In the BI, the 4 strategy, attention and energy are centered inward around your bonding, connecting emotional motivations when they arise. The emotional energy of separation distress flows relatively freely in a fundamentally upregulated way. That's a great description of 4s at some level. Separation distress flows freely and is upregulated. Woo! Cut. This is upregulated toward being seen, standing out, and creating an image to bring attention to you and your need for bonding and connection. Said simply, sometimes you need to call out for bonding and connection with others when you are in need or connection is disrupted. This is the upregulation of the EE, the experience and express mode. Long story short, experience and express that shame. Experience and express, what did he call it? It is sadness and separation distress. But it's expressed for the sake of seeking to bond and connect with others who are able to see those needs. I think a lot more is going on, obviously, in 4s. What I hear here is the language of affect, where 4s are pulling people into their emotional life. That's not always calling out in distress. That might get boring if it was just all distress. But some of the 4 in excess, the drama that can come forth, it can get characterized in these kind of ways of the calling out. Again, separation distress that flows relatively freely in an upregulated way toward being seen, standing out, and creating an image. Whew, that's just gold right there. Underline that 12 times. All right. For all the comments I've made about bad writing, that was a fastball. It's all baseball metaphors for me recently. 2s, make your needs for others' attention and care secondary to the needs for you to attend to them by focusing on their needs. You will be familiar with this. In the BO model, that's unfortunate. Sorry, 2s, you're the bonding outward. How did an editor not catch that one? We don't want to. 2s, love the hell out of 2s. This is an insult that needs. This is why we use the numbers. I'm going to skip the insult. In the 2 model, attention and the subsequent flow of bonding, connecting emotional energies are outward centered toward perceptions of another's need for connection with you. I think that's helpful. It's not just that the 2 is reading the emotions of others, but reading for where do they need you? Where's connection going to take place? I think that's helpful. This requires making their need for bonding and connection primary and your needs secondary. That is, your motivational energy is shifted to caring. This is fundamentally the pathway of caring for others who you perceive to be in need. I think that's helpful. This is the shifting of the RR, the reframe, and redirect. Shame is coming into this is real helpful for 2s actually. The shame, the sadness, the relational anxiety, what do you call it? Separation distress is coming in. What are you going to do with that? You're going to reframe it and redirect it. That really works for me. Reframing that need, redirecting that need towards something else. And 8s do that with anger. 5s are going to do that with fear. We'll look at that in a minute. But for 2s, that really just nails, I think, how the energy can't be created or destroyed, but this is how it's functioning. So well done. 3s. Contain and channel expressions of your innate and effectively hardwired need for a sense of bonding and connection with others so you can safely and effectively move out into the world as an autonomous agent maintaining connection with your safe havens if you need them. The BD, the bonding didactically, the 3 type, or at least those pathways, the 3 pathways, is rooted most deeply in the pathway of early individuation from union with caregiver and is experienced as the shuttling between an inward and an outward focus of attention and energy, the didactic attendancy. Do you stay put in the safe harbor of union with others on whom you depend literally to keep you out of harm's way, or move away from connection as an autonomous person pursuing your own goals and interests out in the world? There's a ton here about early childhood development and throwing out this is how 3s look early on, and perhaps what that channel, what that would look like in all human beings, I suppose, is what he's kind of communicating. But this would be the primary for 3s. And again, yeah, outward, inward, it's all there. The inward bonding and connection. The inner bonding and connection energies are kept in check by diligent outward seeking for evidence of support and approving connection with those others. Your self-image of success becomes key in inward-outward balance. This is the down-regulation of the CC, the contain and channel mode. So shame is contained and channeled. That what I hear here is that he's using a lot of attachment theory. A lot of the affect group kind of ways of thinking about how relationships work for 3, 6s, and 9s. 3, 6s, and 9s are going to attach to those who give them what they need. So 3s need attention. They attach to those who give attention. I'm hearing that in part because he's talking quite a bit about the bonding and connection that takes place until detachment takes place. Why does it take place? They begin to pursue their own goals and interests out in the world. Self-image becomes key. We know this. Contain and channel. That's a great phrase for 3s in terms of their relationship with shame. Shame comes in. What do you do with it? You contain it first and you channel it. You channel it into action. And that's going to be that shift that takes place in terms of the processing center, just like what we said with 9s. They're going to channel all their energy not into bonding in the heart center. They're going to channel their energy into doing work in the body center. So the work, again, Katie and I's language, we're doing work in our body, getting it done there. For the 9, it's accomplishing things that they can bring back to their heart center that would connect them with other people, would fulfill that need for bonding. It seems to make a lot of sense there. So contain and channel really works, I think. Last one, the certainty vector. So this heart types. Speaking of the adaptive strategies at play in these types, start with 7s. Contain vigilant uncertainty and channel that anxious energy into attempting to understand the unfamiliar, preparing for adversity. That's really good, actually. Understanding the unfamiliar is actually a response to anxiety. Eat that up. That's good. All right, so that they're understanding the unfamiliar, preparing for adversity, and gathering information and other resources that might be needed. In the CI model, again, that's the 7 type, this pathway, attention and the flow of motivational energy are inwardly oriented toward the states of readiness of psychological and material resources and information that might be needed if danger comes. I want to cuss. That is so well said. It looks as though 7s are going outward, and they're not. They're going inward, and it's about states of readiness. That works so well. Because danger is coming. So where am I going to bounce? Expressions of anxiety or fear and expenditure of emotional energy in general are relatively down-regulated. You will notice 7s can be the first to say, I didn't realize I was anxious. Attention and energy are contained and channeled into gathering information and guarding personal and material resources that might be needed in the future. 7s are very resource aware. Really worth noting here. You don't see it, but they know what they have to get them from here to there. This is the downregulation of the CC, the contain and channel mode. Perfect. That's perfect. Anxiety and fear is coming in. It's caused by your primary center, by your vector here. The anxiety is contained and it's channeled into that future focus. What are my options? What are my resources? Hyper aware. But again, just love that a lot of their mental energy is then going towards understanding the unfamiliar, the creativity that we see in 7s, the curiosity we see in 7s, the mind and heart for adventure. It comes out of this space of it's actually about addressing fear. It's taking that anxiety within, channeling it into other spaces. That's why it actually, here it is. That's why it actually looks so outwardly oriented. I wonder if you could say that about, okay, we're going to discuss this. I wonder if you could say this about 1s and 4s as well. Like the energy is going inward, but it's producing outward behavior. Like I'm not just angry at myself all day long. It's like I'm very active. So clearly what's happening is I'm taking that anger in and channeling it into other things. The 4, taking the shame in, channeling it into other things. The 7, taking the fear in, channeling it to other things. That's where the behavior is manifesting. So though it's inward in orientation in terms of how the energy is flowing, it still produces something. Anyway, that's helpful. All right, 5s. Let go of vigilant uncertainty because there is nothing to fear and allow this channel. Let go of vigilant uncertainty because there is nothing to fear and allow appetitive motivations to flow into pursuits of opportunities. In the CO, the 5 pathway, attention and the flow of motivational energy are outwardly oriented towards objects of need and desire out in the world and shifted as they're reframed and redirected into optimistic pursuits of them. Holy crap, I got the 5s and 7s backwards. Okay, this is so funny. I got the 5s and 7s backwards. And the reason is because he screwed this up. He's flipping the 5s and 7s. So this actually is a big critique. And I know that they're kind of adjusting to this. The stuff that was said about the 5s, I think is actually what you should say about the 7s. In here, well, the Enneagram language is going to be all over this. Okay, this is another thing to discuss is 5s and 7s, especially if you're a 5 or a 7, show up and give us some insights or comment about this in the comments on aroundthecircle.org. Let me just read it down and then I'll jump into his stuff. Gosh, that's so funny. Okay, so this pathway, let's go with the vigilant uncertainty because there is nothing to fear, and allow appetitive motivations to flow into pursuits of opportunity. In the CO, this actually would be the 7 for him. Attention and the flow of motivational energy are outward oriented towards objects of need and desire out in the world, and shifted as they are reframed and redirected into optimistic pursuits of them. The innate process of negativity bias is shifted towards confidence, and appetitive emotions are allowed to flow freely outward in optimistic pursuits of goals and desires. This is the shifting of the RR, the reframe, and redirect. Okay. I'm going to be mad about this. A lot of Enneagram language sneaking into how he's doing this. I don't know what else to say there. Like here's actually what's taking place. He has a theory. He thinks that the 7s are outward and they're not. They're inward. And he thinks the 5s are inward, but they're outward. And you can see through these 2 paragraphs here's how they're bringing in past Enneagram insights into these types and laying it on theory. But the examples are not flowing from the theory. I think this is a mistake. Okay, so critique of the book. 6s, however, maybe you nailed 6s. I'm still sticking with 7s as understanding the unfamiliar. That's a good one. I do understand that could, like, obviously, now that I'm thinking about it, that could be, put towards 5s. Understanding the unfamiliar, preparing for adversity, gathering information. I can't believe I missed that as I was reading it. I'm going to keep this just so you can hear a lot of this whole project is me doing business with a text. This is what's going on in my brain. Verbal processor that I am. All right, 6s. Maintain a doubtful, vigilant uncertainty and channel between both outward objects and events and inward understanding, knowledge, and perception. The CD, the 6 pathway. Attention and the flow of motivational energy are oriented toward the uncertainty and doubt about both what is understood and believed, inward, and what is perceived about others and the world, outward, in the moment. Seeking of uncertainty and the experience and expression of anxiety and fear are relatively upregulated. Attention and energy are focused toward doubting of the inner self and perceptions of others in the world, and imagining worst-case scenarios as a way to be prepared. This is the upregulation, experience and express mode. I like this in terms of like experiencing your fear and expressing your fear. That's a great description of often how the behavior of 6s can come across. I know that Kristen is not a fan of worst case scenario language. So, but Siegel is also a 6. So I don't know if that pings for him. The attention and energy focused toward doubting of the self and perception of others. We had a long conversation. Some of you commented on this in terms of whether or not doubt should be seen as the fixation of 6s or even the sin of 6s. Again, notice, like, that was what I was defending, and this was the conversation being had with Kristen. In terms of let's see, I'm gonna quote him as an authority, and then I'm gonna say he's wrong about 7s and 5s. But for those curious, Dr. Siegel is elevating doubt as a primary, and this is about the fixation. It's about the mental life and how you deal with the anxiety that you're feeling in what I assume is an excessive posture, which is exactly what fixation is trying to name. There you go. Well, again, lots of Enneagram language here. Maintain doubtful, vigilant uncertainty and channel between both outward objects and events and inward understanding, knowledge, and perceptions. That just feels like he's taking in some Enneagram wisdom. That's our study. That's going around the circle with these pathways and their description in Siegel's book. As many of you know, when I come to Enneagram, I love when you take 2 of the categories and overlap them. So you take the centers and stance, you put them together, what comes out? 1s earn agency, 2s earn bonding. 6 is earn certainty, like that sort of thing. I just love the hell out of that. So this sort of thinking about Enneagram is just my wheelhouse. Just couldn't love it more, and I think it's really helpful. So when you do Enneagram study, like here's just an encouragement. Do an advanced Enneagram study. Go beyond just I'm focusing on the centers. Think about I'm focusing on the centers and how my center overlaps with my stance. My center overlaps with my coping style. My center overlaps, as in this book, with the direction of my energy, inward, outward, both directions. Like there's like 10 categories that are of that sort. Like this is in essence what our book is. Around the Circle is elevating. We did center, stance, affect groups, coping style, and do we do anything else? We do the directions. We do orientation and time. I'm sure there's other stuff in there. Go buy Around the Circle. It's great. You can do that in your own study. But that's what I got. So if you're interested in talking shop about this, we're talking on Tuesday night. Sign up at aroundthecircle.org for a membership, and you'll have access to the Zoom link. It'll be in one of the posts on the page. It'll also get sent to your email. So give us your right email when you sign up for a membership so that you can get the links. That's what I got. We're going to have a great week next week. Monday we're talking with on morning show. We're talking about recovery. That was a great episode. A lot of our morning show stuff is we're getting our legs. Our first few we were struggling just a little bit. But we're doing, man. But Jackie and Kristen are fantastic. TJ comes in occasionally, and it's good times. And then Katie and I are gonna be wrapping up processing center stuff. So keep in touch. Find us on, reach out to me if you got thoughts, questions. I would love comments on all this material at the website. That's what I got. So may all good things be yours.